book states that the crown and netherstones were originally one construct, seemingly sundered at the moment of Karsus's downfall. If we can collect the crown's setting and the 3 netherstones, and with the correct invocation of certain spells and gestures detailed in these notes, I think I could reforge it.
Hey guys, it's DVD Gamer Girl here. Welcome back to my channel. So if you guys recall, a while ago I had made a video on ranking the emotional maturity, kind of the emotional intelligence of the Baldur's Gate 3 companions. So today I thought, what if I rank instead their general intelligence, like how smart I think that they are. And this could be street smart, it could be book smart, it could be a combination of the two, but generally their overall intelligence. So the categories I've come up with are big brain energy, clever, C's get degrees, simple-minded, and missing brain cells. So I'm gonna rank them into each of these categories depending how I feel about their intelligence from the decisions I kind of see them making in the game and their overall vibe. So let's start with Astarion. Okay, Astarion, he doesn't give me that he's very, well-read or he's book smart, but I do feel like he is intelligent with his street smarts and survival instincts and being able to use his charm to get through difficult situations. I feel like being able to deal with certain scenarios, even if you manipulate your way through them, indicates a certain level of intelligence because he's able to read people, kind of know what they want, and then frame himself in a way that makes him attractive to them. So I think I'm gonna put him in clever. I don't think he's necessarily the brightest crayon in the box or whatever you call it, but I think he's generally pretty good with his instincts and his general intelligence. Okay, next let's talk about Karlach. I feel like Karlach is obviously not very academic, like she doesn't, quote lore or anything like that. She's definitely not very book smart, but she has a different type of intelligence. Like I feel like she's very quick thinking, she reads situations pretty well, she's constantly adapting. She knows how to fight. I do really like that about her, and she has survived through a lot of difficult situations, so obviously she has survival skills. I feel like one of her weaknesses though is that she's very impulsive. Sometimes she overlooks details and doesn't think through a situation entirely, and also she is so positive sometimes that I feel like she kind of is a little bit blind to negative aspects, whether that be intentionally or unintentionally. I think overall I'd put her in a solid C's get degrees tier, where she's generally overall pretty smart, but I feel like there's certain aspects that she would miss in certain situations because of her impulsiveness and volatility. Next let's talk about Wyll. Okay, Wyll does kind of strike me as a little bit more academic. He seems to know a lot of history, he knows politics, he knows literature, he's very well educated, and I feel like he was raised in privilege. He's charismatic, he's polished, and he's pretty thoughtful and strategic about his fights. However, Wyll's, I feel like, kind of heroic attitude or his desire to be a hero sometimes clouds his judgment to a degree. And I think he's not always able to think very critically in those situations. Like, for example, as Tab, we had to kind of help him find loopholes in Mizora's contract, etc. Like, it was something he hadn't really thought about or considered on his own, and he kind of resigned himself to like what was gonna happen to him. I feel like he's also very gullible. Like, I feel like he's a little bit idealistic, and sometimes he's not very strategic in that sense. Like, he doesn't really fully weigh the pros and cons of certain situations. He gets like a little bit too caught up in his heroic tendencies. So I think I'll also put him in I'm gonna put him in clever because I feel like where he's lacking in a little bit of strategy, he makes up for in book smarts. Overall, I think he's still a very smart person, but he definitely has some blind spots. Okay, next let's talk about Gale. I'm definitely gonna put Gale in big brain energy. Gale is obviously very scholarly. He's well read. I think he's also very strategic during battles. His only blind spots I feel like are more emotionally, like in terms of his relationship with Mystra, and the unfair power dynamic they have. I feel like he was a little bit blind to it, but I don't think that really interferes with his intelligence. I think that's more on an emotional level. I think in terms of intelligence, Gale is definitely one of the smartest out of the bunch. Next, let's talk about Shadowheart. Shadowheart, I think, is also very intuitive. She's very adaptable. I feel like she has a lot of survival skills and she kind of learns from her situation. She kind of has to because of her lack of memories due to Shar. I feel like she's had to pick up a lot from the environment around her. And she definitely comes across to me as very informed. She's quick-witted and she's able to, you know, adapt to her environment. That being said, I don't think she's necessarily giving big brain energy because her blind spots in her memory, I feel like, do contribute to her intelligence being lower just because she doesn't have a full picture of everything that she's ever known. And her worldview is kind of skewed by Shar and growing up in that Shar-like cult. So I'm gonna put her under clever because I still think overall she's really smart on her own, but she could be smarter if she was also well-read. Okay, next let's talk about Lae'zel. Lae'zel, I'm gonna have to put her under simple-minded. I just feel like Lae'zel is very, very blindly dedicated to the Vlaakith cause, and you have to really, really kind of talk her out of it in order for her to actually understand what's going on around her. Lae'zel is also, like, you know, objectively one of the youngest of the bunch, so it makes sense that she kind of is still forming her worldview and is not necessarily very intelligent yet. I feel like she's great in battle. Like, obviously she has really good actual physical, like, fighting strategies and abilities, but mentally she's very closed-minded and it takes a lot for her to be more open-minded. She's not very well read and she has taken kind of the ideologies of Vlaakith as the end-all be-all truth, and it takes a lot to kind of convince her otherwise. So I don't know, I just don't get very like high IQ vibes from her, but I feel like she definitely has potential and room to grow. Next, let's talk about Halsin. I feel like Halsin is kind of in the middle. I mean, he's older, so he has a lot of world experience, particularly in love. I feel like that's where he always draws upon his experience on like how many people he's been with, all these things that he's gone through, etc. At the same time, like, though, I feel like Halsin is actually kind of lacking in overall intelligence despite his background. I mean, just like his constant self-blame for the shadow-cursed land situation, and I just feel like he has kind of a very limited worldview. I don't really understand why I get those vibes from Halsin. I feel like he's very grounded, but he doesn't give me genius vibes. I feel like he's very comfortable with his domain and what he knows, but I think he would be uncomfortable going outside of that, and it would be hard for him to pick up on, you know, new skills, new worldviews, etc. So because of, I feel like, his limited range of knowledge, I'm gonna put him in C's get degrees. Like, I feel like he's great emotionally, but in other senses of intelligence, like, not so much. Okay, now let's talk about Minthara. Minthara is 100% going in big brain energy for me. I feel like she's extremely strategic. She's very cunning. She's very self-aware. Obviously she's not using her intelligence necessarily for good intentions, but I think she's extremely intelligent, and if I had to face her in any type of battle, I would be scared out of my mind because I feel like she would pull these really big brain moves in order to win, like, whatever that she's doing. She's amazing at planning. Like, when she wants to take over the Grove in Act 1, she tries to plan it strategically. She has a lot of charisma. Like, I just feel like she has every quality to be in big brain energy category. Okay, next let's talk about Minsc. I don't know if you guys are gonna be happy about this, but I'm gonna put him in missing brain cells. Like, I feel like he has great fighting ethic. He's relatively emotionally mature. He's very stable. He's very grounded, but I just cannot see him as intelligent. Like, he's way too simple. I feel like it would be really hard to have a deep conversation with him or an intellectual conversation with him. He doesn't really strike me as book smart. And even like street smart, like, I mean, I feel like he has good fighting abilities, but I don't think he's necessarily intelligent or strategic in how he goes through things or his survival in certain situations. I feel like he more like brute forces everything and hopes for the best. So I really have to rank him low. And yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about it, at least. Jaheira, okay, Jaheira really does give me big brain energy. She kind of, I feel like, has what Halsin is missing. Like, so she is definitely older, but she's also like very grounded, very strategic. She's a little bit untrusting of people, but it's good for survival skills. I also feel like Jaheira would be able to adapt to more new situations, like more so than Halsin. And she doesn't have, you know how Halsin had that very self-deprecating, the shadow curse is all my fault, lamenting about it for so long type of vibes. I feel like Jaheira wouldn't have that. She'd be more kind of action driven and more objective. She also seems, you know, relatively more experienced, and I don't know much about her lore in previous games, but from what you guys have told me and some things I've seen online, she's also been through a lot before. So I feel like that kind of adds to the depth of her knowledge and expertise. Okay, so that about summarizes where I feel like each of these characters belong. I feel like people are gonna get mad about where I place Lae'zel, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, I'd love to know what you think. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.